Right, so, well, what a morning already. I can't believe it. I mean, I put these things together and then I just send it up to the universe and see what lands. And it's landed beautifully. And I'm absolutely thrilled to have Sarah Dyke here this afternoon. She's got a very, very busy schedule. As I reminded her, this was her idea to begin with. She said to me, what are you doing for International Women's Day? And I said, and here we are. And it could not have come better. I'll just say actually, everybody I've asked has immediately been so receptive to it all and be here, speak, be part of it, in some way or another be involved. And I couldn't have done any of it without the support of my wonderful friend Sue Case from the Basement Centre, who she and I were sitting, this is how we start all our conversations. Why are we doing so much for I'm older than Sue, I have to say, but she's more my generation. And I said, why are we? And then we decided we love it, we do it because we care, and Sue's work at the Basement Centre is just extraordinary, and I just want to give a big thank you for all you do for the community here. So, I don't know what we were going to talk about today. I did actually sort of write a brief, but what I'd like to do is, first of all, you grew up in a farming family, you're from the area, you care about this area very deeply, I know you do. I know you care about women's roles in what's going on, so I don't really have to tell you as an MP what to say. I think you're perfectly capable of saying so. And then Sue, I'd like to share a little bit about your history as an organic farmer and how you know, what you did. But if that's okay with everybody, hi Harriet. Then we'll go. So Sarah, again, thank you for coming.
Pleasure.
And over to you. And what would you like to say on this wonderful International Women's Day celebration of what women can do, are doing, and will be doing with the land, especially around here in Somerset?
Yeah, thanks, Lynn. Thanks so much for inviting me. And I forgot that it was my idea.
It's your idea.
I had the idea, and then I've clearly just dumped it on Lynn to organise. but it's brilliantly done, as always. And I don't know whether we've already thanked Lynn for what she does, but I think we should thank Lynn for what she does. And I love celebrating International Women's Day with you. I wouldn't miss it for the world. So I'd stop saying that I've got a busy schedule because everything stops for Lynn Franks.
Oh.
it really does. Yeah, exactly. But you know, it's lovely to be here, and lovely particularly to be able to talk about my story, getting into politics, growing up here, and the importance that farming has for me, and the importance of women in farming particularly. So for those of you that don't know me, and hopefully there's quite a few that do, sorry, but I'm going to tell you my little story of growing up around here. I grew up on a farm in Silton, which is literally just over the border on the way to Gillingham. I was born there, my mum was born at the farm, but I can trace my great-grandfather times 6 back to North Cadbury when he was born there in 1763, which is obviously right in the middle of this wonderful constituency that I represent in Parliament, Glastonbury and Somerton. So I really feel that my roots are very deep within this community, and that is really important to me as a Member of Parliament. I wouldn't want to represent anywhere else. It was serendipitous that the opportunity came up, and I was there at the right time to be able to put myself forward. But growing up, I was very much a farm girl, country girl. I liked nothing else apart from going out and helping my dad milk the cows in the parlour. Nearly said Parliament then. In the parlour. I had my first teddy bear, which I still have, a little teddy bear called Pinky, still has a cow poo stain on his arm where I dropped him in the parlour, and he's still got that on his arm 50 odd years later. And I think actually I was more into the farm and working on the farm than my brother was, and my brother is now farming and is in his mid-50s. But for me, it's integral to who I am. I live and breathe the countryside, live and breathe rural issues, live and breathe farming. So growing up, I was halcyon days. The sun was always shining. I had ponies. I was really lucky. I lived this glorious, glorious life in the countryside, and I think that I was quite privileged. But I've taken that and harnessed that in what I do. I then went to agricultural college. I went to Harper Adams Agricultural College and studied agriculture and business studies, and then, as every good agricultural graduate does, I moved to London and worked in London for 15 years. And I worked there. I was working for various charities. I worked for a father's charity, helping all sorts of different dads to be more involved in their children's lives. I worked for Further Education College, Lewisham College, Further Education College there in business development, helping the students there to develop their lives and get them into some really fantastic careers, actually. In the city, most of those children actually could see the city in the distance from Lewisham, but had never actually been there. So my role was to help facilitate them making those connections, and that was a transformative role. And then from London, as everybody does, you get tired of London, don't you? So then I decided that I wanted to come back home, and I did that via the Soil Association, which is the organic food and farming charity that's based in Bristol. And I had a kind of a national role, really looking at regional development right across the country in supply chain development in kind of 2006, 2007, something like that, when obviously the organic movement was moving at pace, but there wasn't that connectivity between the farmer and the end supplier and everything in between. And then after that, I came back down to this neck of the woods, and I was lucky enough to run a European funding programme, initially called Sowing the Seeds, which was very much a community-based funding programme, giving grants to rural businesses, community organisations and farmers. Gave out in the region of about £2 million in the first few years, and then subsequently there was another programme, because all the European programmes used to work on a 7-year cycle, and then latterly around the Heart of Wessex leader programme, which covered a bit of Wiltshire, a bit of Somerset and a bit of Dorset. So I don't think it was Dorset. We moved Dorset out, I think, didn't we? So in total, those funding that I was involved in for those 10 years or so, probably brought about £10 million worth of seed funding into this area, and that was matched with 60% additional funds from the beneficiaries, because there was a maximum 40% grant intervention rate. So I've seen, through that role, really saw what was going on in the community, got a better feel for what needed to be done, was speaking to community organisations and farmers and businesses. And then I decided that actually I was getting a little bit more interested in politics, and Sue Place is going to get the blame for this, because she started. She was at the very start. I blame Sue every time. But I was working with Sue, and we were on the way down to a meeting down in Exeter, and I was like, oh, Sue, this is during the coalition years. And I could see the difference that the Liberal Democrats were making in that coalition government. Now, whether you think that is right or wrong, those 5 years, I think that we will look back on those 5 years and see it as quite a stable time in the history of politics. And I could see what the Liberal Democrats were doing was stopping some of that more extreme work that the Conservatives wanted to do, and I think we can see that already over the turmoil that was after those coalition years, until they were rightly booted out at the last general election.
About this lot then. Sorry.
Well, yeah, we'll come on to that in a little bit. But I was going yeah, that's it. But I was in the car with Sue, and I said, look, I'm interested in politics. What can I do about it? And she goes, oh, I can introduce you to a few people within the Liberal Democrat Party. And literally, it seems like a blink of an eye, I found myself as a candidate standing on the South Somerset District Council elections. And I was like, how did I get here? And of course, there was no real support, there wasn't much going on, but I just went out and knocked on doors. And within a matter of months, I found myself on polling day with a massive majority of one vote. And at that point in 2015, which obviously was quite a difficult time for the Liberal Democrats because we were coming out of the coalition years and obviously we got hammered at the polls, that was quite a success, so I was going to take that one vote. I haven't found who that person was yet. When they own up, they're going to have a lot to answer for, because really that was the start of my journey into politics. So
on the third recount.
it was 3 recounts, yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, so I was completely new to it all, didn't know what was going on, and I sort of ran the room in the polling station, is this normal? And everybody was like mouths kind of aghast, don't know, this really isn't. And it was really very, very nerve-wracking because particularly that one vote meant that Liberal Democrats kept control of South Somerset District Council from the Conservatives. So to me, that messaging is every single one of your votes makes a difference, and that one vote, whoever it was, I hope it was a woman, but that one vote made a difference, and it not only made a difference to the makeup of South Somerset District Council, made a difference to my life, and I hope as a result of getting that one vote, the people in Millwall Port that I represented got a decent local representative rather than the car crash that they'd had before. But so for me, that one vote then turned into a 72% majority at the next district council election. So I really felt that I then had a mandate. I felt like I was doing a good job. Now I always suffer a little bit with imposter syndrome, and I've
Can I just stop now? Who in this room suffers from imposter syndrome?
I'm in good company. So, and I've spoken about this. I spoke to a group of young kids from St Benedict's over in Glastonbury that came to visit me in Parliament a couple of days ago, actually, on Thursday. But I also spoke about it to a degree, and I asked a question to the Leader of the House on Thursday.
Did he suffer from imposter syndrome?
She.
Oh, it's a she?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
I didn't phrase it as imposter syndrome, but I was talking about the barriers for women in politics. And I'm a huge advocate because that has been my journey really in politics. One, because I didn't ever think I was good enough, and I question whether I'm good enough every single day of the week.
You're good enough.
But I talk about this suit of armour that I think we're all born with, and you grow up with it. You're born with it, and it's shiny and bright and spangly, and it looks absolutely beautiful. And then as you go through your life, there's a few chinks that get taken out. There's a few dents here and there, and you've got some bits that rub a bit kind of dull. And it's actually up to you to rub those down, sort out those chinks, and actually every single chink and every single dent tells a story of who you are. And I think that every time I'm feeling a little bit down, I look at my suit of armour and say, come on Sarah, sort yourself out. And that's my journey. But every single day I question myself. But I want for everybody to kind of really own that, and particularly young girls coming through into politics, because I have heard so many times on the doorstep from young women particularly, oh Sarah, I don't think politics is really for me. I don't really know what you're talking about. And I'm like, hell you do. You absolutely. Do you have children? Yes. Do you go shopping every day? Yes. Do you struggle to get a dentist appointment? Can you get a doctor's appointment? Yes, yes, yes. Well then in politics is absolutely for you, because it's your voices. 51% of the population women, and our voices need to be heard. Now, going back to my journey, I nearly didn't stand in the 2019 local elections because I was going through a relationship breakdown, life, just stuff was getting in the way. And somebody said to me, Sarah, we really need you in local politics. We really need you because your voice is different to many of the, sorry if there's some here, male, pale, stale, that we have in local politics. A lot of retired older men who think, I'll go into politics because that's what one does after one has a career. And it was really important to me, and I just suddenly had this light bulb moment. I was thinking, yes, that's absolutely right. I should do this. I should be here. I have a place at the table. I shouldn't question myself about who I am and what I can bring to the table. And that was actually John Burrow who gave me that kind of light bulb moment. And so from there, I moved on, and I was then appointed to be the lead member for environment at South Somerset District Council, a role that I absolutely loved because that brought in my background, my farming, my interest in rural affairs and the countryside. And then, of course, we had the unitary elections in 2022, and I stood for Blackmore Vale ward, and we kind of romped home to victory as the Liberal Democrats in 2022. At the same time, I was appointed to be the parliamentary candidate for Somerton and Froome because a by-election was on its way, and I was then subsequently joyously elected to be the MP for Somerton and Froome in July 2022 with a huge majority, and I was really proud.
A lot to do, if you don't mind me saying, to do with you, rather than any party politics. That's why I think, because I'm not a great believer in party politics, best of times, but it was because of you, because everybody knew that you were coming from your integrity and did care, really care, and I think it was something very special.
Yeah.
And it's still something very special.
Yeah.
And you haven't so far changed.
No.
I'm never going to.
No, well actually that's really nice, because somebody actually said to me the other day that was talking to me, they said, "Oh Sarah, it's really nice because you're so normal."
Yeah.
And I'll take that as a compliment.
That you support and that you come up for, and you know, because you care about them.
I do. Yeah.
That you do genuine things.
It's a pity I can't sing, because I'd say you're simply the best, better than all the rest.
I haven't paid Hazel to say that.
So we're coming to come back in a little while, but I'm going to at this point introduce Sue to tell her story of how she ended up here, where she's sort of doing all this stuff, which is completely the opposite, really, of political, in so much as it's making things happen and making things in community change without going what would be political with a big P route, one would say. I mean, you work alongside town councils, county councils, you have to, and national government too. But at the same time, Benjamin, tell us your story and about how the balsam started, because I think a lot of us don't know.
Well, my own personal story is, although I didn't quite grow up in a farming family as such, I grew up in a very agricultural community in East Sussex, very rural location. My father was, he was actually a commercial vegetable grower, and I think that probably in today's parlance we would probably call it an organic grower. He was very conscious about using natural methods, and that was seasonal, as it always is. So in the winter, he was a writer, and he wrote novels, and he wrote plays and articles, and I think I've sort of inherited both of those sides from him. But growing up, I was we were in the middle. We lived out in the middle of nowhere. It was quite isolated. My friends were farmers' daughters. My social life was young farmers. I went to agricultural college to Victon, and I studied agriculture with horticulture there. I then went into, I never quite know why, but I was passionately interested in dairy farming. And I actually ended up working for, initially doing working cattle breeding, but then working for MAF, Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Food, and then I met my husband through that work, and then when we had young children, we moved to Somerset, and we moved at a time when I think we were both sort of really wanting to do something beyond gardening. So although he was working for NAF in animal health. I was at home with children. A council farm came up for sale in our village, and it was divided up into lots. And we both thought, okay, can we see if we could possibly...
Can I ask you, you taught me this the other day about council farms, and I've never heard about council farms. Does everybody here know about council farms? I didn't know. Anyway, I didn't know. But do you want to explain about council farms? Because we don't have them anymore, do we? So I want to bring that
Sarah's probably the best person.
Okay, but anyway, so the council sells off land
Yeah.
to young people who want to be farmers, and the big problem we have in this country is not enough land for the people that do, particularly young families who do want to go and start becoming good and growing.
So this was how we got started. We we were young. We'd just taken on a mortgage. We didn't have any money behind us at all. But we actually got together with another couple and decided that between us we could probably just about scrape up enough money to possibly buy one of these lots of land, which is what we ended up doing. And Georgie, you talked about the worst land being the cheapest. Well, what we bought was, between us, was 11 acres of intractable Oxford clay, very flat, very wet, although interestingly at the time that we bought it, it was dry. This was over 30 years ago now. We set about our dream, our John Seymour dream, was to really to grow our own food and be sufficient, perhaps. We immediately planted. I don't know. We haven't measured our hedges, but many hundreds of yards of hedges, which are including an oak tree which my father gave us at the time, which at that time was that tall and is now 30 plus feet tall. So many metres of hedges, but we started growing vegetables, and we quite quickly realised that we were going to be providing...
They were organic, you always kept it organic.
Yes, we did. Well, we sort of saw if we could do it first of all, and then we went for organic certification because we had also at the same time come together with other growers locally. Some of the names of people who are still around, who Gila I expect you'll know, people like Jyoti Fernandez.
Sure. Jyoti just before Christmas.
Oh, did you?
Actually, yeah.
Patsy Chapman and the Crosses and Becca Lawton at Tink's Bubble, and all of these people who have sort of become legends in lifetime. And together we set up something called Wessex Organic Movement, which sadly no longer exists, but did exist in quite an active form for quite a long time. So we had this thing going, and this was around sort of 25, 30 years ago now. I think, I don't know if we were ahead of our time, but it was sort of contemporary to what you were doing, Sarah, at the Soil Association then. And there was a rapid movement of organic activity, and then I think, I don't know why, but it kind of waned.
Why? actually. It is interesting to know why. People wouldn't buy organic vegetables, they're too expensive. Or
I would say, just as instinctively say that actually it's more accessible in the supermarkets perhaps.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
weren't having to look at those alternative ways of buying it.
Yeah.
Which is obviously there's pros and cons to that, isn't there? But
Yeah.
it's great that people are accessing more.
Internet farming.
Yeah.
Yeah, farmers markets have never really taken off over here. I mean, there are in some areas, I know Stroud across the street, but they've taken off, for example, when I lived in California, there were farmers markets all the time. Not so much over here.
Now the Wilson Centre came out as the place that was available. It was a former hospital. Yeah, but it had been a geriatric psychiatric unit, so it had quite a kind of stigma attached to it. But it was felt this was something that the group could go for. And to cut a long story short, and I saw Richard earlier on, but Georgie, you mentioned David Posnett. Now, he's been in both our lives quite significantly because David actually came forward and supported that initial purchase of what became the Wilson Centre, and has been a very good friend of the centre over many years, decades now. And the Healthy Living Centre was born. Veronica stayed long enough to sort of get it set up and then decided that her work was done and she moved to Cornwall. I came in as a project development coordinator to start to get some projects off the ground and activities. And that was 23 years ago now. I think we fulfilled Veronica's vision over the years, but it is all about the power of community, the power of connection, and that kind of everyone has something to bring and to give and to share. We're constantly developing new groups, new activities. We're very responsive to what's going on in the community. We work with many different partners. I know it's been fab working with Lynn. Over the last couple of years we've had this thing going with
sustainable women entrepreneurs, startups, it still is.
Our focus is kind of mental health, but it's holistic health, and you can't pull apart mental and physical health. So
well-being.
It's well-being. Yeah. So that's
Children's
kind of
nursery, the garden. There's some amazing stuff you're doing up there. Absolutely amazing, and it felt all through the community here. It really gives Wincanton its heart, I'd say. Because it's a difficult, it's not the easiest town, Wincanton, to be in. Funny old place, but it's got heart here, and that's fantastic. So Sarah, back to you. I don't know. Thank you, Sue. Thank you.
I just wanted to actually, Sue was talking about mental health, and I've done quite a lot in Parliament around mental health in farming, which I think is a topic that doesn't and hasn't been amplified enough. And I've been working with a little group called Yellow Wellies, which is the Farm Safety Foundation. And there's a week every year in February that we have a little Yellow Wellies on, and we get out and amplify it. But for me, it's an all year round conversation. There's far too many people in farming that are losing their life to suicide.
That's terrible. We were listening about India before, and I was hearing stories from India.
Yeah.
But here, and why is that? Is it the financial?
It's the isolation, I think, that Sue was hinting at. It's definitely financial, and I think now with the impact of the recent budget announcement, where the inheritance tax, the family farm tax that I'm sure most of you have heard about. Bearing in mind that farmers have had a terrible time over the last 7 or 8 years with Brexit, with the botched trade deals, with the botched transition from basic payments into the new scheme around environmental land stewardship management. There's so many impacts on farming that this just seems to be the last nail. Now, I know a lot of farmers are actually deciding whether that this will be the last year. Labour haven't really thought about this and how farms actually run, how it's multi-generational farmers. Like my own family is partnership is my mum was my dad until he passed away last year, my brother, and that they're just looking at this on a paper-based exercise, and it's hugely frustrating.
Not a lot of farms in Islington, are they?
No, exactly. And that's the thing. They've just looked at it on a paper-based exercise and just thought, that'd be an easy one. We'll just save some money through farming. But farmers, if we don't have farmers, we don't have food. If we don't have food, we don't have food security. If we don't have food security, we don't have national security. It's as end of that. With the volatility that's going on around the world, we must do what we can to protect our farmers. And there's going back to the mental health message, we need to support our farmers' mental health. No stage has been more important than it is now, but also we need to recognise, and I've just started doing a piece of work, or supporting a piece of work that Exeter University are doing around women's mental health in farming, because I think 55%, I was looking at the stats, 55% of people involved in agriculture are women, and our voices are not heard. I'm sure every one of you kind of said when we were talking about mental health in farming, you would have thought of a man, wouldn't you? And I think that piece of work, when I was doing some research about mental health in women, there was very little there. So then I was delighted that Exeter University came along just at the end of February and announced they were going to do a piece of research on it. So now in Parliament, I'm looking to really amplify that voice as well. And we need to end the stigma around mental health in farming. We need to make it more accessible. We need to talk about it more, because farmers don't generally go to their doctor as much. They don't, because they're busy for one reason or another, whatever it is. So we need to bring those well-being resources to them. And Froome Market, for example, has got a brilliant initiative going up there, the health hub, where farmers can just go out, trot round and go around the farm, the agricultural market, and then go, oh, there's a health hub, I'll just nip in there and have a chat. And when I was up there a couple of, before the last election, just one intervention made a huge difference, saving somebody's life. A man was diagnosed, in fact, he went in because he had his blood pressure checked or something like that, and talking to the nurse, she was a little bit suspicious, ends up he had prostate cancer, and he caught it early enough to be able to help him. And those interventions for all of us to be able to, in farming, to be able to have that kind of intervention, that soft intervention that can just help explore, because you're too busy, you haven't got time. Your doctor's appointment at 5 o'clock when you're still halfway through milking the cows or whatever it is, you just don't get there. And it's really important that we get out there and reach out to farms, because it's a horribly...
I'm just trying to think, what can we do between us all?
Exactly.
Even here, I mean, it's fantastic they've got that going in Froome, and of course my friend Jill Pettis sits in there, he's got a lovely rural space, agricultural space. Improve, but what could we do anything around here? Could we encourage women farmers, because this is a women's space, do something specifically as a result of today?
I'm
growers, I'd like to say. Really.
I'm running a farmers symposium on the 11th of April at the Bath and West Showground, Future Farming in Somerset, and perhaps that's something that we can do. 11th of April, Friday the 11th of April, 9:30 till 2, and perhaps that's something where I can start to have those conversations, because
maybe create something that's an ongoing group. And is that something? I mean, Georgie, you don't appear to have mental health issues, but do you think as a grower, as a flower farmer?
Well, I want to talk to Sarah afterwards about flower farming, and I've got a new role. I need to. I'm not
just put in charge of the whole National Flower Farming Association.
Congratulations.
But we need to get more farmers growing flowers.
We do.
Because it's a fantastic diversification. The challenge is to get the flowers to market, to make it affordable, but it certainly makes people happy.
without a doubt.
Plus, we spend billions of pounds a year importing flowers from Venezuela.
Exactly.
Why would we? We don't need to do that. So anyway,
And actually you're right, is it that resilience that we need to have, and I talked about food resilience, but actually there's all sorts of things that we should be growing and can be growing.
yeah.
Why the hell
And this
aren't
is
we
what
doing
We
it?
live in this lovely,
Yeah.
warm, not difficult environment.
Perfect environment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Lulu was also saying we could, if we got together more and supported each other. Lulu, were you in the room when she was speaking? Yes, at the end. You were.
Yeah, at the end, yeah.
Yeah, so, because Lulu's doing landscape rewilding and landscape gardening and encouraging other people to turn their spaces in for rewilding
Yeah.
and everything.
Exactly. And I think that, and that's really important
because
because
as a group.
there's a conversation around farming doesn't have to be highly intensive farming. We can balance nature and farming, and farmers are great at doing that. They've been doing that for years and years and years, but they've not been incentivised to do it. So if we can encourage our farmers, and farmers they are the guardians of our countryside. They want to look after the countryside. They want to be farming for generations to come. The question is, can they do that? But we need to give them the tools that they need to be able to do that,
We
to
need
be
to
able to
start
balance.
these farmers' markets up again.
Yeah,
Really
absolutely.
I wish we had one here,
Yeah.
Council, but yes.
I think that there's an issue around fairness in the supply chain that we need to talk about, so that farmers get a fair price for their products. Because at the end of the day, at the moment, farmers are all reliant on supermarkets. Okay, there are a certain portion. No, we're good, but very little. When farmers are stuck in a contract, though, Hazel, it's very difficult for them to get out of that and then sell independently. Which is why I think we've got to bring in this fairness in the supply chain to help farmers enable them to be a little bit more
And
flexible.
the other thing is the urban farming is quite interesting. I don't know the details, but I know in Bristol, because I've doing a bit of work there, there's 3 city farms in Bristol, which is quite interesting. But I've no idea where you might call themselves a city farm, but they're not farm in the way that we're talking about.
I think what we hugely need to encourage and facilitate is local production, so that everybody can walk
to buy their food, get their eggs, like Hazel says,
Yeah.
she's getting her eggs.
I had to drive all the way up to Holton the other day, get some eggs.
But you went.
To Holton.
I know that you went. But that's good. That's good. I mean, actually, I do think farmers markets is a big part of the answer. I also think opportunities for the growers to get together and be able to talk and share and be seen and be heard, like all women's groups, really. But the women growers, the women farmers, the flower farmers, the vegetable farmers, this is an ongoing conversation, and I'm sure there's other people here who would like to ask questions, both to Sarah and to Sue, and probably particularly to Sarah. Got any grouches you would like to?
Was that the time?
No, I mean, she's doing fantastic work, absolutely amazing work. So
I was only joking about the time.
I know. I've got the door locked.
No, exactly. I'd love to hear your voices, because for me, doing this job, I can only do it if I hear your voices, because it's your voices that I take up to Westminster, it's your voices that I put into the questions that I ask ministers, it's your voices that I put into my speeches. In my debates, and I was lucky enough to hold a backbench business debate on ambulance wait times on Thursday in Westminster Hall this week.
Oh, did you?
A massive issue for us here in the South West, the worst performing ambulance service in the country.
And you changed the bus laws locally, didn't you?
There's a little bit of change. We're doing some more, doing better connectivity with buses and the trains, and trying to get branded better kind of connectivity between the bus and the train services. There's lots of smaller interventions going on, but that is all shaped by your voices. So please, even if it's the smallest thing, you may think it's the smallest thing, but actually, if I can go and bang the drum on that, then the smallest things can make the biggest difference.
You changed me, you're getting my vote next time.
There you are.
You have mine, but you're outside my area.
Thanks, Jill. Victoria.
I'd just like to say how appreciative I am that you are so visible. You tell us what you're doing. The last guy, I've forgotten his name, David, he was invisible for 4 or 5 years or something. We hear and see what you are saying around the country, around this area, and in Parliament, and it's just brilliant. So thank you.
I really appreciate that. Thank you very much indeed. But it's a privilege to do what I do, and I absolutely mean that from the bottom of my heart.
Hard work though.
It's hard work, but you ask a woman to do a good job, and then you'll get it done. Absolutely.
Rachel,
Yes, I'd love to ask a question. Thank you. I'm interested in the planning laws for on farm, to have people come on farm, have their own business, but not be in a caravan, wet caravan behind a hedge. There seems to be a sort of difficulty in having farm workers come and have somewhere to live. If they can't afford, we live in a very expensive area, and they can't afford necessarily to come from another place, start a market garden or another business. How can we get these young people on farm and give them somewhere to live when we can't, we can't build it. That is a real. I'd love to have people on my farm.
Yeah.
But I can't get anyone unless I get them a caravan or something like that. And if they live in a caravan, it's fine, but it's temporary. They're never going to settle there and make a life. And it is a problem.
I think it's around kind of planning. There's an issue around obviously agricultural tenancy isn't there, and I think that we do need to be careful in the countryside to make sure that the homes that we build there are appropriate and are for the right people. Oh, you stranger! But obviously, what we do need to make sure is that we're allowing people to have those opportunities on farm where they want to farm. And I think we were talking about council farms. That there is a dearth of council farms out there for people who want opportunities to new people.
There's loads of people who want to come on farms.
Exactly.
Loads.
And I know from coming to agricultural college, and I've still got people there. I talk to people. I was at Harper Island Agricultural College, and I know there's a lot of people at agricultural colleges. Agricultural colleges are doing brilliantly well. But then there's not enough people. There's a real recruitment and retention problem in agriculture at the moment, and that's at the coalface of farming. There's a lot of people who go off into careers advisors or business or whatever, but actually because it's so difficult in farming at the moment, there's not enough. We're not able to keep enough people there and offering those opportunities.
We get money as farmers to rewild or have increased biodiversity and mitigate flooding and all that, but we need help to get these people on.
Exactly.
I think there should be some fund of some sort. There should be some help from DEFRA.
Yeah, I think I'm slightly cautious on that one, because what we would need to ensure is obviously those homes are then built in perpetuity for agricultural workers or people who want to take businesses.
But they could be pods. They could be sort of which go on those screws in the ground, which then can. Yeah. If they're gone, they're gone. There's no sign of.
There's a guy in Gillingham that's doing pods, actually quite big pods based on the sort of geodesic dome kind of pods.
Yes, there is that.
Exactly.
But I think the bigger problem is around the seasonal visa scheme at the moment that farmers need.
Yeah. Are they changing that for young people from Europe?
No, that's a different scheme. At the moment, farmers
still can't really
exactly. If we talk about veg farmers, I don't know what Georgie's finding on kind of flower growers.
We're too small.
We're too small, not take. But there's vegetable growers probably more on the eastern side of the country. Just haven't got enough people, and we're hearing that potatoes are rotting in the fields, daffodils aren't being picked, and that is a problem. And I think that is the key. And the conditions aren't right, and also the accessibility coming over here is a real issue as well. But it's certainly something that I'd be quite interested in talking to you about. But as long as those homes that we are providing on farms are for.
And also they mustn't be for Airbnb. I mean, they've got to be very much for a farm worker.
Yeah, very specific.
Very specific.
For people who want to work on farms.
So unfortunately the salaries as well, because it's not a highly paid work, And people are getting paid more to stay at home and not go to
Well,
work.
it's mostly foreign workers' situation actually. If they're
and that's only because
Do you
they're
want-
cheap labour.
just behind you, Hazel.
Sorry.
Matthew wanted to say something.
I'm a farmer's daughter, but also a marketeer, so that gives you a bit of context as to why I'm asking this question. I'm just interested about like the outward perception of farming, and obviously having a groundswell of public support. Obviously, everyone in this room, you know, is quite from quite a rural area. Obviously, it's really important to get like the heart and the emotion from everyone across the country. But when you've got people like Jeremy Clarkson who are kind of banging the drum on behalf of farmers, who immediately went out there and said, I only bought my farm for inheritance tax purposes.
And for shooting.
And yeah, exactly, all the important stuff. How do you make sure that people around the country in cities actually understand the importance and understand that they're not, you talked about privilege. You know, I grew up on a farm, I feel wildly privileged to have done so. I didn't mean I had loads of money.
No.
But I think there's this misperception that everyone who works in the countryside has got a ton of cash.
Yeah.
And actually I was on the train coming back after one of the farmer protests. I wasn't protesting, I was in London for work. But the difference, you've got the actual sort of the workers who were there who were earning next to nothing, and you had kind of a, I'm going to say this, I shouldn't, but like a hooray Henry sort of section at the other end.
Yeah.
And all that the public sees is that end of the carriage.
Yeah, exactly.
How can we as a community
Yeah.
make sure that the country sees the big picture? Because otherwise that's what's needed, isn't it? It's support.
Yeah.
That's the marketing.
Yeah,
Going next, Sarah.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say one of the
TV.
things that we tried to do at the centre is really bring people closer to understanding where food comes from and
Children, especially.
yeah,
Mm.
sure. Yeah, we work with the whole community across all age ranges, and we start with early years. I can't remember who was talking about the growing space earlier. Georgia, was it you? So you know, our children from nursery go across to the growing space. We have an environmental fair once a year, but more than that, we just try and connect people up with outdoor activities all the time, so that there is sort of starting to be some level of understanding of what goes into food production, but what comes
It
out
does have to
as
start
well,
with education,
and-
doesn't it?
and you know what a farmer might expect to receive from primary production, because you know, a lot of the difficulty I think we have is the kind of mismatch between what you might grow on the ground in a community and what you might be doing in a sort of industrial agricultural setting, and all the different sort of discrepancies of you know, inputs and outputs and income and regulation, and you know, so many different nuances and aspects to agricultural, horticultural production. That yes, I think there's been a terrible disservice done by Jeremy Clarkson to you know, in one way it's opened people's eyes, but in another way it's sort of
Sarah, what do you
oversimplified.
agree?
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. But to your point around the protests, I absolutely agree that there is a really fine line between keeping the public on board with farmers and actually through the protests, farmers being angry, and actually they've got a pretty good life already. You know, you've got a nice house and you drive a nice car, and you know you've got your barber and you this, that, and the other, and turning the general public off of what's going on. And I was talking to a group of farmers just the other day and last week when there was a CLA protest up in Parliament, and it's getting that protest right, keeping the volume up, but keeping it appropriate so people aren't turned off about it. And that's why I keep turning, the conversation has to be turned around to food security, what farmers do, not what they're wearing, what car they drive, or what house that they live in. It's about keeping farmers farming because they produce your food and your drink, or your flowers, or whatever it might be, and that's the most important thing. Exactly, and that's the important thing, and that's where we need to change the dynamic of the conversation. We've done the big flush of we're not going away, but now let's turn the conversation about what farmers do for us to eat and drink and protect the countryside.
Really, for farmers. Richard, so you've got to see the people.
Yeah, so I just wanted to comment on mental health and farming because what I'm hearing in the room, the things that are really speaking to me are the health hub for farmers in the food and farmers market, and the asking farmers to grow portions of flour. If I think deeper into mental health, for me, what I'm really feeling and sort of exploring in my profession is, which is just as much wilding and natural regeneration and ecological regeneration as it is food farming systems and food. But what I'm seeing is that we are intrinsically our landscape. We are intrinsically we were speaking about sort of Mother Earth, the divine goddess, and that kind of experience in our relationship as woman to Earth. And I think what mental health in relationship to land is very much about the depleted and sort of thrashed way that the land is treated now. So even if a farmer is being referred to as the guardian of the soil and the earth and the food, the systems are broken down so badly that they are now, the flailing that's going on at the moment in the bushes, it's enough to depress anyone. And if you're close to nature and you see a hedge treated like that, if you're a farmer yourself or a woman within that scene, it is abuse, actually, of a hedge, of a plant, of these beautiful medicinal plants that we know are our resource and our medicine and our lifeblood. And the way that the soil is flailed and ploughed, and all of our channels and canals are cut and fast runoff systems. And, we're living in landscapes completely destroyed, and the farmers are now got far too mechanised and industrialised. So my research with rewilding and the reintroduction of species has taken me back to Bulgaria, Romania, Poland, where we've got pastoral scenes, where flowers are integral in the growing in the farms, and I think, but much back to a closer community system. Farmers are much smaller. Farms and farming are smaller, and going to Middle Europe and actually travelling and seeing these lovely piles of hay and just the kind of much more basic way that they work. You also then see all the bird life and all the thriving animal systems around that as well. And the same in India, actually. If you're going cycling through the streets of Tamil Nadu, you're basically looking at a rewilding scene. Pigs, cows, chickens, everything on the street, but it's where the soil, the microbials active in the community, and all of it leads to deep health, and all of that helps mental recovery. And I kind of feel like it's just really lovely again to be in community
it's about bringing it all together. I was listening to something webinar about farming in America, where these groups are starting to do forest farming, where they're letting it organically grow and what is indigenous for those forests.
Silviculture,
So it's like
mushrooms.
And the whole mycelium thing. It's actually going back to the old, but from a lot of big farmers, that's not their focus particularly, but maybe with the women coming together and talking about.
Well, I think we just need to look at mental health and what the level that we're farming to, I imagine, is the same level that mental health is in crisis. I imagine it's literally we are what we live on. We are the earth. And so if you're living in an organic, full, multi-layered system that's productive and well, and the water's flowing and everyone's coming, the animals and all beings are happy on that land, you're going to be really well. You are literally what the earth is. We are not what we eat. We are what we breathe, what we see, And I think we need to start really, really looking at how we create the healthiest vision outside, and it'll become inside. It'll affect whether we develop cancers or not. It'll affect our whole mind health. So I think that's kind of my take, the whole
I think
vision
that's
take.
really
And thanks, Lynn, because here's where we can build those things together, right?
I love what you say, Lulu. It's absolutely beautiful, and it's about bringing. You know, when I think about it from where you're coming from and where you're coming from, where we're all coming from different spaces, but it really, we can feel it. It's resonating. I know it is for all of us, and we can do something together. I don't know quite how that will evolve, and we need to talk about it more. But